what's going on, guys? Welcome into Machine Heads from CompactEquipment.com. Look, if you love construction equipment and you love talking about construction equipment, you're in the right place. Here on Machine Heads, we don't just talk horsepower and basic specs. We detail the why and the how behind the features and improvements that are moving the latest compact equipment forward. I'm your host, Wayne Grayson. So today on Machine Heads, we're going to be welcoming in a special guest to talk about drum mulching attachments. And that guest is Bahr, the BCP attachment sales consultant at Caterpillar. Now, during our chat with Brock, we discuss everything you need to know, not only about the drum mulcher, but everything you need to know when it comes to buying the right one for your specific needs. And that includes why it's such a popular land tool in the first place for land clearing applications, and the differences in design between the various mulchers, the teeth that you have available on these mulchers, and a lot more. But we also talk specifically about the Caterpillar lineups of compact track loaders and drum mulchers, and what Cat brings to the table as a brand when it comes to these land clearing combinations. All right, so let's get into it. Here's our chat with Bahr of Caterpillar on drum mulchers. Bahr, thank you so much for joining us today to talk a little bit about drum mulcher attachments. Brock, you are the BCP attachment sales consultant for Caterpillar. Welcome in. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So let's get right into it. In terms of the attachment we're going to talk about today, let's just start off with this question. The drum mulcher itself has gotten it's kind of risen up to be one of the more popular attachments in general for compact loaders and CTLs. Tell us a little bit about what you guys have seen from your end of why drum mulchers and kind of like the mulching application in general on these machines has become so popular in recent years.
Yeah, Wayne, that's a good question. So the reason these became very popular is because you have a wide range of variety you can use these mulchers for, as far as land management, as far as you're wanting to clean out debris that's overgrowth. Even if you're wanting to do new construction, you need to get in there and clear that property for a new construction or new business you want to put in. So that's their diversity is what's made them become widely popular amongst construction companies and land management companies. So,
and what have you guys seen from your end of guys maybe diversifying into this application? Maybe they've kind of recognized the versatility of the CTL, and they're looking to maybe make some more money with mulching and get a little bit more return out of their investment on a CTL. What are some of the reasons, or how does that naturally kind of happen from you guys' perspective with your customers?
Yeah, like you said, you have, if a customer has a CTL machine, we offer a wide range of attachments for that CTL. So, I mean, if you want to do more landscaping, we have the application, the tools for landscaping, even just general construction work. Then if that customer wants to expand that opportunity to move into that land management, I mean, we have the brush cutters, we have the mulchers, we have all that variety of equipment for them to use to expand their portfolio and allow them to offer more for that customer, for that end user. So,
yeah, and when we talk about the drum mulcher, you guys at Caterpillar actually offer two types of these attachments. Can you kind of tell us about the differences between those two types of drum mulchers at Cat?
Yeah, so we offer a drum mulcher is kind of our most popular one. That drum mulcher is kind of offered on our standard flow and high flow machines. So any Caterpillar skid steer or compact track loader that you have, you can run that mulcher on. So even from your 262 up to your 299, depends on the hydraulic flow. So you have that smaller machine and you want to get in that more land management application, you're allowed to do that with our smaller mulchers. We have an HM 112, 115 for those smaller machines, and all the way up to our 418 that be like specifically designed for that 299 XE machine. So, like I said, the open drum mulcher is kind of more popular because we have a lot of variety on that. But the bite limiter has also become quite popular with land management companies that have that operator that's kind of getting into the business and they don't have that skill set. That bite limiter helps them manage their cut and helps the operator kind of not stall that machine out as much. They're able to kind of use that mulcher to cut into those trees, and the bite limiter kind of limits how much they can take in at one time and not overwork the machine. So
Yeah, I mean, structurally, are these essentially very similar designs, except for the bite? Tell us a little bit about what the bite limiter kind of looks like, and how what the design of that machine, how it kind of differs from the open drum mulcher.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, the overall design they're very very similar. The open drum does offer a door to help recirculate that material to help you get that finer material. That is really the big difference visually. But then with the bite limiter, what it is basically you have steel, about half-inch steel plates in between those teeth, and what they do is they kind of don't allow that tooth to fully engage into a tree as you're cutting down a tree. So it allows you to kind of limit, like I said, it's a bite limiter. It's a limiting amount of tooth engagement, so you're not taking a full-blown chunk out of that tree, and it helps protect that mulcher a little bit better. And if you're dealing with more viney material, that bite limiter with their chisel teeth kind of helps cut that material a little faster and better.
Okay, yeah, good segue into tooth types as well there, Brock. Now, tell us a little bit about the different types of teeth that you can outfit a drum mulcher with, and how those differ, and kind of how they're more applicable to particular applications.
Yeah, so I'll start with more of our standard flow or high flow mulchers or smaller mulchers. They offer a reversible chisel tooth. So what that is, it is a sharpened tooth that as you are able to use it and where it gets worn out, you're able to loosen it up, spin it 180 degrees, and then retighten it. So you're able to get almost twice the life out of those tooth. We do offer, you can add carbide tooth to those, but those are, more, they come standard with that reversible chisel tooth. With our larger mulchers, like I said, the open drum comes standard with the carbide teeth on the larger mulchers. So our HM 316, HM 318, and 418 and 416. The carbide teeth, basically, those are kind of really, if you're in an application where you have a lot of debris, a lot of rock, that carbide tooth kind of helps. It doesn't wear out like a chisel tooth. I like to refer to this as a carbide tooth as you're going to work on the tree. You're kind of beating the tree into submission, versus a chisel tooth. You are cutting that tooth with a fine axe. But like I said, the carbide tooth is really ideal for those customers that you need to get down on the ground and you want to get that mulching or that tree flush with the ground as much as you can, and you're dealing with a lot of debris, and they won't fracture and chip as like a chisel tooth would. So.
Yeah. So one of the other things we've brought up a couple of times here is the fact that you have kind of like multiple models of these mulchers. Can you kind of go through briefly each of those models and tell us a little bit about how a customer should kind of go through the process of choosing the right model of mulcher for their needs?
Yeah. So ideally, to choose the right mulcher you got to first determine what machine you have. So if that customer has, a very popular machine we have is our 259 standard flow machines. So with our 259 standard flow machine, that doesn't have the hydraulic capability to run our largest mulchers because of the hydraulic capability of that machine. So really, you need to start out which machine you have and then kind of whittle down from there. So I'll go back to the 259 standard flow. You can look at our mulchers, which would be like our HM 115 or 112. What those are, the one kind of indicates that it's a standard flow mulcher. And then the 12 after that means it's a 1.2 meter cut. So that's kind of how we identify our mulchers. If you go to HM 215, 2 indicates that mulcher is a high flow tool. Now, if you have your 259 with a high flow, you're more than capable of running that HM 215. Also, you could run that HM 112 if you want. So you can, if you have a machine that has that high hydraulic capability, you can run the lower mulchers with the lower flow. The machine's going to know what type of tool you have attached to that machine and limit that hydraulic flow. So And then kind of to move on into our larger mulchers, so we have our HM 316 and 318 and 416 and 418. Those are meant for our high flow XPS machines, 289, 299, 279 machines. And then we also offer HM 416, 418, which that's kind of our elite one for skid steers. That's your high flow, high pressure machine. That's kind of your more, you have a dedicated machine to land management. You have that 299XE with the debris package, the aux coolers. So that's what that mulcher is kind of designed towards.
Okay. Yeah, and I know with this, too, it's really about a mix of the right machine, and as you were just talking about, the right machine with the right mulcher, because some of these mulchers are really designed for the higher flow machines. Talk a little bit about, based on what a prospective customer of one of these attachments might be looking at. It maybe they're just getting into kind of wanting to make some money with a drum mulcher, or compared to somebody who is they're going to be using this attachment 60-70% of the time as part of their kind of like daily work. What should you kind of consider from making sure you have the right machine for the job and how much kind of hydraulic flow that you need, and then kind of how to pair that with the right attachment, how you guys kind of approach that from a sales perspective?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, you kind of want to look at what machine you have, and then kind of pare it down to the mulcher that is compatible with that machine. Now, if you're going to be mulching every day and you are really wanting to get into this business, you're going to want to kind of go with the largest mulcher with that hydraulic capability that suits your machine. Now, if it's a guy that's kind of want to just do this on the side, well, just, not too often, he could drop down to that standard flow mulcher. You're not going to get as, fast results with it because, you're on the lower end. But it'd be more cost effective for them versus if you wanted to get that ideal mulcher intended for your machine, that 316 or 318 if you had an XPS machine. So really that's kind of really the only options you have, because all the mulchers are all really built very similar. They got a lot of similar components to them. So there's really not a difference as far as like an entry level mulcher for us versus one that's going to be used daily. I mean, they're intended to be used every day. It just depends on that price point that customer wants to get into.
Yeah, and it sounds like too that you guys have broken up the lineup in such a way that it's kind of, if this is the one that you're looking at, then it's really meant for either one of the XPS machines or for one of the kind of standard flow too. That definitely kind of helps the customer out quite a bit as well. I think one other thing too that came up in my head as we were kind of talking about just kind of like the speed, I guess, or the kind of like of kind of moving through the material based on the attachment that you end up going with. How does the difference between the drum mulcher and the bite limiter kind of play into that decision as well? The customer that's going to be using these maybe 30% of the time for mulching versus the customer that's going to be using it 70% of the time. You mentioned with the open drum mulcher that the material kind of like can recirculate and get finer and finer, mm-hmm. which is definitely going to be a big selling point for folks that are going to be doing this as like a primary application. How should when is the bite limiter I guess the best choice for somebody who's going to be doing it a long time, or is that more geared toward folks that aren't doing it as much?
Well, let me step back on your comment about the open drum and being able to recirculate, get that finer material. We'll talk about that for a second. So your open drum with carbide teeth, like I said, you're kind of beating a tree into submission. So if I was going to cut down a tree and you went straight into it with an open drum mulcher with the carbide teeth, your end product is going to be more of like a stringy material, similar, I would say, to like your landscape mulch around your house. you're able to close that front door, back drag that material, and you'll get a much more finer material there that'll help decompose a lot faster. Now let's switch over to a bite limiter with the chisel teeth. Now, if you have that chisel teeth, when you go into that tree the first time, you are going to get that finer material as if you were with open drum and you back dragged it a second time.
Oh, wow.
So that chisel tooth, what it does is it's like it's cutting the tree down with a fine axe. You get really fine material. The downside to the chisel teeth is, like I said, it's a axe. You're gonna need to sharpen it. You may have some wear and tear if you are getting into debris, rock. You never know what's in these brush piles. You could have fence posts. I mean, tires. The chisel teeth, that is one downside to it. It does require more maintenance than it does the carbide. The carbide is basically, you want to get in, you want to mulch. You're not too concerned with the finished product. Maybe you're doing like a right of way on a tree line or something, or for a power company. They just want that material gone. But if you have that customer that's next to like a golf course or something, or they're wanting to build a house, they want it nice, you'd maybe want that finer material using that chisel tooth. But like I said, depending on the material with that chisel tooth, on the maintenance, you could need to sharpen it by the end of the day if you're going through, maybe oak or a harder wood. If you're cutting down pine trees like here in North Carolina, you could maybe run it 2 days and not have to sharpen it. So just kind of depends on what that end product that customer wants, as far as if they want to go the carbide, just hop in it and go and not concerned with the finished product, or they want that fine product and they want it to be able to clean up real nice with that chisel tooth. So
Yeah, and so when it comes to that's a good segue to maintenance on these machines. What does that process of sharpening those teeth kind of look like? And then is there anything else that's really good to know on the maintenance side whenever it comes to making a purchase decision for one of these attachments?
So for maintenance for our mulchers, all of our mulchers, they got 3 grease points on them. They kind of grease the motor. Obviously, you want to check your OMM on what that maintenance interval is. And then you obviously want to make sure, if you're running a lot of debris, just check the teeth. Make sure you don't have any loose teeth. Make sure, you don't know what you may run into. You could knock a tooth off if you're running into heavy material. You hit a fence post or something that you don't know that's there. It's always good to kind of walk the area that you're going to mulch before you mulch, just so you know what could be there. But far as the open drum maintenance wise, really, you want to check your OMM, grease it, and then check belt tension. I believe it says every 100 hours, where he said check your OMM. As far as the bite limiter with the chisel teeth, same thing, greasing, checking the belt. The only additional thing you're going to have there is sharpen your teeth if you have those chisel teeth. What that does is the chisel tooth, to check that, if inside the OMM tube inside on the mulcher, there comes a little gauge with that. You kind of hold it up to the tooth, and you kind of can see it fits up to the tooth, and kind of shows you how much tooth life you have left, and kind of what percentage you are. And then to sharpen that tooth, you want to just take your 4.5-inch grinder, and you can kind of sharpen that tooth down nice and flat. You use that gauge to kind of make sure you're kind of keeping that proper profile to sharpen that tooth, because you want to make sure you don't just sharpen the tip of that tooth like a knife. You want to sharpen the whole tooth itself, because you want to be able to keep that profile consistent with the rest of them. But there's a gauge inside the OMM to kind of help give you that profile for sharpening that tooth and to show how much life you have left in your teeth.
Awesome. Well, Brock, is there anything else that we haven't touched on that is good for customers who are either looking at upgrading from their current attachment to something more powerful, or even just getting into this? What is something that you feel like is handy for them to know before they head out to make that purchase?
So I want to hit on with the difference between the bite limiter and open drum. So like I mentioned, the bite limiter comes standard with chisel teeth, and open drum comes with carbide teeth. Now, we have specific customers that have special need applications well, they can swap out those teeth. So you can put chisel teeth on your open drum or carbide teeth on your bite limiter. Just kind of depends on what that customer wants to do. On the open drum, it does require a little bit additional adapter because obviously the size difference between the carbide tooth and the chisel tooth is quite different. So you're able to mix and match those on our cat mulchers if that customer sees that and wants to do that. We do offer different carbide teeth. We have our standard ones, and we have more of a rock resistant carbide tooth. It's kind of got a little bit more carbide in it to help, it will last a little bit longer. So that is an option for them if they're into a lot of debris, they're in the mountainous areas, and they're dealing with a lot of rocks. So it's another little bit on teeth. So
Okay, all right. Well, is there anything else that you can think of that we haven't hit on?
Not that I think of. We covered quite a bit here.
Okay, awesome. Well, Brock, man, thank you so much again for hopping in and joining us today. Talk a little bit about drum mulchers and all the options. This awesome lineup from Caterpillar, man. We appreciate it. Hope to do it again soon, bud.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up today's conversation on drum mulchers here on Machine Heads from CompactEquipment.com. If you like this video, found it informative, and it helped you in any way, please do us a favor and hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Ring that bell to turn on notifications so that you don't miss a video from Machine Heads in the future. And if you have any suggestions or comments, be sure to leave those in the comments below. We always love hearing from you guys. Thank you again for watching. We'll see you in the next one.